This video is for speech outline task card. I'm going to walk you through the step 2 instructions. In step 2 of this task card, we need to select evidence from our sources in the research task card in order to start proving that our subclaims are correct. So what we need to do is first review the selecting evidence skill card. We need to make sure we have at least 4 sources in the annotated bibliography. This isn't an absolute have to, but if you don't have at least 4 sources in your annotated bibliography, you probably don't have enough research complete in order to actually do this step and select evidence to support your subclaims. Then we need to select evidence from our sources, from the sources in our annotated bibliography, that is going to prove our subclaims, and at the end we need to do a self-assessment. So first off, review the selecting evidence skill card. There's a link to it right here. Diving right in, the selection of evidence rubric checklist is the most important thing to look over, but I would also encourage you to look over the evidence rubric, to look at the examples of different kinds of evidence for each one, and also to look at some of the sentence starters at the bottom. One important thing, all of this right here is context. This is the actual evidence itself. All year long, I've been having you add on some context and background information in order to help integrate the evidence into your writing. That is actually a completely separate skill that I've just been training you to do with selection of evidence to get you ready for this project. In this project, if we scroll down, they are actually 2 different skills. So what we're doing in step 2 is getting our selection of evidence. Later, we're going to work on integrating it into our speech. So for right now, in the selection of evidence sections that we are doing for step 2, we are really only getting, right here what's highlighted, the quote itself, and we can worry about integrating it later. So we need to find evidence that's relevant to a topic. So the quote you have needs to be about your speech. It needs to come from multiple sources. I don't want to see the same 1 or 2 sources being used. We need at least 3 sources used for your speech, and it needs to support both your claim and subclaim. To get up to the 5, you need to have enough evidence to actually prove, so it's sufficient means you have enough to prove the argument made in your claim. We'll talk about that in just a second. If you think of, actually we'll do it right now. If you think about your claim as problem, cause, and solution, you need to have enough evidence to, 1, show that there is a problem, and 2, explain why it matters or why it's so bad. Actually, let's rephrase that. You need to show evidence of problem, and 2, explain why it's bad, if that makes sense. You would want 1 piece of evidence for the problem paragraph that shows the problem exists, and another one that explains why it's such a bad thing. That would take care of the problem. For the cause, you would want a piece of evidence that shows, at least 1 that shows what is causing problem. And for the solution, you need at least 1 piece of evidence that shows how the solution will fix things. Okay, hope that made sense. And finally, moving up to a 6, you need to have detailed evidence that gives specific facts. So you want to have lots and lots of background information in here. I don't want a Wikipedia page if you're at a 6. I want a specific article or paper that is all about your topic and gives you lots and lots of data that is relevant to your argument. Okay. Diving back in here. You should have at least 4 sources in your annotated bibliography. To remind you what that is, our first week we were working on your research task card. In your research task card, after you ask the questions about your topic and you gathered some evidence from websites, in the annotated bibliography we said if you were using a source, you needed to complete the annotated bibliography for it by responding to the questions in the box above for each source. Hopefully you've done this already. If you haven't, I can't let you use a source in your speech that you haven't done an annotated entry for, because this shows me that you know it's relevant, credible, detailed, and comprehensive. Really important that you go through the thought process for it. So look in the sources that you have here and find a piece of evidence to prove each one of your subclaims. At least one piece for each subclaim, hopefully 2 pieces for each subclaim. Once again, we are not doing the integration of evidence boxes right now. We are only doing the selecting evidence boxes right now. So not these 2, just the selection of evidence ones. Once you're done with all of your selection of evidence boxes, then you can turn your attention to the integration of evidence based on the instructions in step 3. After you've put in your pieces of evidence, and remember, if you don't have good evidence to prove your subclaims, then you need to do some other research to find a source that will prove your subclaims. Then, coming to the bottom, you should have already copied and pasted your self and peer assessment of speech outline box into this document. If you haven't done that yet, you can come back up to the top. It is found in the bottom of the updates page, the same page that you're getting these instructions from. Copy and paste it in there. You are going to want to complete a self-assessment for selection of evidence right in this box, where you're giving yourself a score and explaining how you got that score using the language of the rubric, checklist, and evidence from your selection of evidence quotes that you put in. After you've completed this, then and only then are you ready to move on to step 3, integration of evidence. Please feel free to reach out to Ms. G or Mr. Sussman if you have questions. Thank you.